Internal controls are everyone's business. Everyone has to be knowledgeable and financially intelligent when it comes to protecting assets of a business. In this video, I will share with you the one time in my career where I was involved in detecting fraud and the lessons learned from that case. Thank goodness I have only detected fraud once in my career. As an accountant, we are trained to look for this, but everyone should be trained to have an eagle eye towards detecting fraud, because the consequences of not taking this responsibility seriously can be horrific. Here's the scenario. I was just out of college in my first job, and like many jobs I would have over the years, I was an accountant responsible for reviewing financial information for a few manufacturing facilities around the country. One of them was a joint compound plant in Milford, Virginia. Joint compound is a product that is applied to make a building surface a seamless base for painting. My job was to take various financial data from these plants and review it. For example, the manufacturing plants did not have access to financial systems at the plant level. Thus, they could not process their own payroll, they could not process invoices from vendors, etc. They would send all these documents in weekly mailings to people like me. I would review these documents and then send them on to the departments that actually processed them. So how did we find the fraud? Well, we had known for a while that this manufacturing facility had a lousy net income record, meaning the facility hardly ever made a positive net income. There were fairly wild swings in the bottom line numbers on their income statement. We had been analyzing their financials for a while, but nothing was uncovered. One month, though, we got an invoice for a PA system. Okay, that could be a reasonable expense for a manufacturing plant. To install a system to make public announcements in a warehouse/manufacturing facility. However, a few months later, we get an invoice for the exact same thing. Now that is odd. And when we compared the latest invoice to the other invoice, it was for the exact same thing. Now on the surface, you might think, okay, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is this particular manufacturing facility and warehouse was all in the same building, probably about the size of half a football field. So having two PA systems really did not seem plausible. And if you looked closely, he was actually buying stereo systems, not really a true PA system. Lo and behold, after looking closer at other invoices, the trend became clear. The plant manager was buying things for his house with company money. So how did this happen? Basically, right around the time I was hired, the office manager at this manufacturing facility resigned. The plant manager had made a proposal not to replace that individual on the basis of saving money. The plant manager proposed that the quality supervisor would be his second signature on purchases. Sounds like a fine plan, doesn't it? However, the plant manager, nor anyone in the corporate office, trained the quality supervisor about what it meant to be a second signature on a purchase, and what kind of trouble you could potentially get into if you did not understand that fiduciary role. It is a miracle that the quality supervisor was not charged with a crime like the plant manager was, because he could have been an accessory to the crime at the very least. In the end, the quality manager was not indicted. One thing that you can learn from this situation is that small offices can have a real challenge when it comes to internal control, because it can be much harder to have segregation of duties. In fact, this little manufacturing facility only had 9 employees. So how do you break up the job so that one person is not performing the whole function? In addition, in this case, because we knew this plant was small in size, the need for a second PA system did not make sense. But if a person had never visited there, how would you know that a second PA system did not make sense? Second, if you or anyone that works with you or for you has a signature authority, you have to think about what could go wrong. How could I get in trouble with this unknowingly? A great resource for you in any work situation is the accounting staff. Reach out to any or all of them to help you to be aware of why that signature matters and have them give you tips on what you're looking for when you sign your name. In this case, all of the appropriate documents were present. A purchase requisition signed by the two people, a purchase order, and the delivery paperwork were attached to the invoice. But if we had not looked closely at the actual item being purchased, we may never have known about this fraud. Third, the reason many companies have ethics training is specifically for this reason. However, I have seen few companies that train employees on their financial responsibilities. So make sure that even if you don't have one, make one. Do not ever use ignorance as an excuse. This quality manager could have gone to prison just like the plant manager did, so he got off easy. He could have had to pay a fine or some other consequence. He is lucky, but do not ever think that the consequences to you could not be severe for financial ignorance, because the consequences most certainly could ruin your life. Now is your time to take action. If you're working at a company now, be willing to educate yourself about financial matters, especially when it comes to internal control. By watching this video or taking a financial class, these are all good things to do. If you are currently working somewhere where there is an accountant or accounting staff, take them to coffee. Ask them about internal controls. Ask them about what you were looking for so that you can see how fraud could happen in your work. Also, another good source of information is an internal or external auditor. If the company you work for is publicly traded, you could have an internal audit staff or an external audit staff, or both. Talk to them. Ask them to teach you about internal controls. Ask them to teach your staff about what to look for. As a manager or potential manager in the workplace, build a habit of talking to the accountants so that you are financially savvy when it comes to internal controls. Thanks so much for listening. Leave any questions that you may have. I will be happy to answer them, and I will talk to you again on another video.